People rarely say exactly what they think. Most communication happens beneath the surface. Words are filtered, emotions are hidden, and intentions are often disguised behind politeness, fear, insecurity, or social conditioning. The average person spends their life listening only to language while completely missing the psychology underneath it. And because of that, they misunderstand people constantly. The most powerful individuals in the world understand something different. Human behavior always reveals the truth eventually, not through perfect words, but through patterns, reactions, timing, emotional shifts, and unconscious behavior. People can control sentences for a few seconds, but they cannot fully control their nervous system for long. This is why observation is power. Most people walk into conversations trying to impress others. Powerful people walk into conversations trying to understand others. They observe energy changes, emotional reactions, pauses, eye movements, confidence levels, tension, tone shifts, and behavioral inconsistencies. Because hidden truth leaks through behavior long before it appears through words. The first psychological principle is emotional contradiction. Whenever someone's words and emotions do not match, the emotions usually reveal the truth. Human beings are emotional creatures pretending to be logical. A person may say they are happy for you while their tone tightens slightly. They may claim confidence while their body shrinks under pressure. They may speak calmly while their nervous system reveals stress through micro-expressions, pacing, or hesitation. Emotion exposes internal reality. This is why emotionally intelligent people pay attention to congruence. Congruence means alignment between words, emotions, body language, and behavior. The more aligned a person is, the more authentic they usually are. But when contradictions appear repeatedly, something hidden is happening internally. Fear creates contradictions. Jealousy creates contradictions. Insecurity creates contradictions. Attraction creates contradictions. Deception creates contradictions. And most people miss them because they only hear language. A person may say, "I trust you," but constantly monitor your behavior. They may say, "I'm fine," while emotionally withdrawing. They may say, "I support you," while subtly discouraging your growth through tone and behavior. Words are easy to manage. Emotional leakage is harder to control. The second psychological principle is behavioral consistency under pressure. Pressure reveals true identity faster than comfort ever will. Anyone can appear calm, kind, confident, loyal, or disciplined when life is easy. But pressure strips performance away. Stress weakens emotional masks. Fear exposes priorities. Uncertainty reveals emotional maturity. Watch how people behave when they lose control, face rejection, experience discomfort, or encounter conflict. Those moments reveal their deeper conditioning. A person's real level of confidence appears when they are challenged. A person's real loyalty appears when they gain options. A person's real emotional control appears when life becomes difficult. Pressure reveals what comfort hides. This is why difficult moments are psychologically valuable. They expose patterns people normally conceal. Someone may present themselves as emotionally stable, but pressure may reveal impulsiveness, insecurity, manipulation, or aggression underneath. Another person may appear quiet or reserved, but pressure reveals calmness, resilience, and leadership. The nervous system always tells the truth eventually. Most people spend too much time analyzing what others say instead of studying how they behave repeatedly under stress. Behavior patterns matter far more than isolated words because identity is revealed through consistency. The third psychological principle is attention direction. Whatever controls a person's attention usually controls their emotions, decisions, and priorities. Attention reveals hidden values more honestly than words ever will. Watch where people invest emotional energy consistently. Watch what triggers strong reactions. Watch what they repeatedly return to mentally and emotionally. Human beings unconsciously reveal their internal obsessions through attention patterns. Someone obsessed with status constantly seeks validation. Someone controlled by insecurity constantly compares themselves to others. Someone driven by fear constantly searches for certainty. Someone emotionally attached to you constantly monitors your behavior even when pretending not to care. Attention reveals attachment. This is why emotionally aware people observe focus carefully. People expose their hidden priorities through what they repeatedly notice, discuss, criticize, admire, or react to emotionally. The mind moves toward what matters internally. Even hatred can reveal obsession because emotional intensity creates psychological fixation. Indifference is usually quiet. Emotional attachment creates repeated focus. This understanding changes how you see people completely. You stop blindly trusting polished words and start studying behavioral patterns. You stop reacting emotionally to surface communication and begin observing deeper psychological signals underneath it. And once you develop this awareness, manipulation becomes easier to detect because many people communicate strategically rather than honestly. Some hide insecurity behind arrogance. Some hide weakness behind aggression. Some hide jealousy behind criticism. Some hide attraction behind emotional distance. Human behavior is layered. The people who understand psychology deeply do not become paranoid. They become observant. They stop taking everything personally because they realize most human behavior is driven by internal emotional conditioning. Confidence, fear, ego, trauma, insecurity, validation, and emotional needs silently shape interactions every day. The moment you begin observing patterns instead of isolated moments, human behavior becomes easier to understand. Repeated actions expose character, emotional reactions expose priorities, pressure exposes emotional stability, attention exposes hidden attachment, and suddenly people become far more predictable than they first appeared. This awareness is powerful because it protects your energy. You stop trusting appearances blindly. You stop ignoring emotional contradictions. You stop confusing charm with integrity or confidence with emotional maturity. You begin seeing people as they truly are, not just as they present themselves. And that changes everything. Most people believe communication happens through words alone, but words are only a small part of human interaction. Human beings constantly communicate through behavior, emotional reactions, tone shifts, body language, facial expressions, timing, attention, and unconscious patterns. The problem is that most people are trained to listen only to language while ignoring the psychology underneath it. Because of this, they misunderstand intentions, trust the wrong people, and miss the emotional truth hiding beneath surface conversations. People rarely reveal themselves completely through direct statements. Social conditioning teaches individuals to filter what they say. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, desire for approval, insecurity, ego, attraction, jealousy, and manipulation all influence communication. Most people carefully manage their words because words can be controlled intentionally. Behavior is harder to control consistently. This is where real psychological awareness begins. A person can rehearse sentences, fake confidence temporarily, or hide emotions for short periods of time. But maintaining complete control over the nervous system is extremely difficult. Emotional states leak through behavior constantly. Tiny shifts in tone, hesitation, tension, facial expressions, eye contact, posture, pacing, and energy reveal far more than language alone. The human nervous system always communicates. This is why emotionally intelligent individuals observe patterns instead of isolated statements. They pay attention to congruence. Congruence means alignment between words, emotions, and behavior. When someone's communication is congruent, everything matches naturally. Their tone aligns with their message. Their body language supports their words. Their emotional energy feels consistent. But when incongruence appears repeatedly, hidden emotions often exist beneath the surface. A person may say they are supportive while subtly competing with you emotionally. They may claim honesty while avoiding direct answers. They may act friendly while their nervous system reveals discomfort or resentment through tension and emotional withdrawal. Most people miss these signals because they focus only on literal language. The reality is that behavior reveals emotional truth much faster than words do. Human beings unconsciously expose what they truly feel through repeated behavioral patterns. Attraction, insecurity, fear, jealousy, guilt, anxiety, dishonesty, and emotional attachment all create subtle behavioral shifts that leak through communication. This is especially noticeable when emotions become stronger. The more emotionally activated a person becomes, the harder it is for them to maintain perfect control over behavior. Emotional pressure weakens performance. Stress increases leakage. This is why observing people carefully during emotionally charged situations reveals far more than casual interaction. Behavior reflects internal condition. Someone who constantly seeks validation may pretend confidence verbally, but their attention-seeking behavior reveals insecurity underneath. Someone hiding resentment may continue speaking politely while their emotional tone becomes colder over time. Someone emotionally attached may attempt to appear indifferent while repeatedly focusing attention on the person they claim not to care about. The mind and nervous system reveal hidden truth through repetition. This is why patterns matter more than isolated moments. Anyone can fake behavior temporarily. Almost anyone can present an image for short periods of time. But maintaining false emotional consistency over long durations is extremely difficult because real internal states eventually leak through behavior repeatedly. Repeated behavior exposes identity. People often reveal themselves unintentionally through what they prioritize emotionally, how they react under pressure, and what consistently captures their attention. Their behavior begins telling a deeper story than their words alone. Another reason behavior matters so much is because actions require commitment. Words cost very little psychologically. A person can promise loyalty, support, honesty, or confidence easily. But behavior reflects what the nervous system truly values enough to act upon consistently. This is why observing actions is more reliable than trusting verbal presentation alone. Human beings naturally want to believe what sounds comforting, attractive, or emotionally pleasing. But psychologically aware individuals understand that emotional reality appears more clearly through patterns than through statements. They watch what people repeatedly do. Does someone repeatedly avoid accountability? Do they become emotionally reactive under pressure? Do they constantly shift behavior depending on social advantage? Do they support you only when convenient? Do they seek attention constantly while claiming independence? These repeated patterns reveal internal psychology far more honestly than carefully chosen words. The deeper truth is that human beings are emotional creatures first and rational creatures second. Most communication is influenced by emotional needs operating beneath conscious awareness. People often do not fully understand their own motivations, which is why behavior exposes things they may not even consciously admit. Fear influences behavior. Ego influences behavior. Insecurity influences behavior. Attraction influences behavior. Emotional attachment influences behavior. And all of it leaks through repeated actions. Once someone understands this, they stop being hypnotized by polished communication alone. They begin observing emotional congruence, behavioral consistency, and nervous system reactions instead of blindly trusting appearances. Because in the end, people may control their words carefully, but behavior eventually reveals the truth hiding underneath. Human beings are constantly revealing what they truly feel, even when they try to hide it. One of the clearest ways this happens is through emotional contradiction. Emotional contradiction appears when someone's words say one thing, but their emotions, behavior, tone, or nervous system communicate something completely different. Most people notice the words and ignore the contradiction underneath them. But psychologically aware individuals understand that emotions often reveal the deeper truth. Words are controlled consciously. Emotions are harder to manage. A person can choose polite language carefully. They can rehearse explanations, hide intentions, or present a socially acceptable version of themselves. But emotional states leak through behavior automatically because the nervous system reacts faster than conscious performance. Tiny changes in facial expression, voice tone, body tension, eye contact, pacing, breathing, and emotional energy expose internal conflict constantly. This is why emotional contradiction is so powerful psychologically. When someone's words and emotions do not align, the emotional reaction usually reveals what is happening internally. A person may say they are calm while their nervous system displays stress. They may claim happiness for someone else while their tone tightens subtly. They may insist they do not care while emotionally monitoring every detail obsessively. The contradiction itself becomes the signal. Human beings are emotional creatures, pretending to be fully logical. Most behavior is influenced by emotional states operating beneath conscious awareness. Fear, insecurity, jealousy, attraction, resentment, guilt, validation seeking, and emotional attachment all affect communication patterns. Even when people attempt to hide these emotions verbally, the nervous system often exposes them indirectly. This happens because emotions create physiological responses automatically. The body reacts before conscious control fully activates. Stress changes breathing patterns. Anxiety alters pacing and eye movement. Attraction changes focus and attention. Fear creates hesitation and defensive behavior. Emotional discomfort creates tension in posture, tone, and expression. People can temporarily mask these signals, but sustained emotional control is extremely difficult. The stronger the emotion, the harder it becomes to hide completely. This is why emotionally intense situations reveal hidden truth more clearly than calm situations. Pressure weakens social performance and increases emotional leakage. A person may say, "I trust you," while constantly checking your behavior and acting suspiciously. They may claim confidence while avoiding situations that expose vulnerability. They may verbally support your success while subtly diminishing your progress emotionally. The words sound positive. The emotions reveal something different. Most people become confused in these situations because they rely too heavily on literal communication. They hear supportive language and ignore emotional inconsistency. But emotional contradiction creates internal tension because the behavior and words do not fully align. Psychologically aware individuals pay close attention to congruence. Congruence means alignment between verbal communication, emotional state, body language, and repeated behavior. When communication is congruent, people feel authentic because everything matches naturally. There is emotional consistency between what is said and how it is expressed. But incongruence often signals hidden emotional conflict. This does not automatically mean someone is intentionally deceptive. Sometimes people themselves are unaware of their true emotions. Human beings often suppress feelings consciously because certain emotions feel uncomfortable, socially unacceptable, or threatening to identity. Someone may genuinely believe they are supportive while unconsciously feeling jealousy. Another person may insist they are emotionally detached while internally remaining deeply attached. The conscious mind says one thing while the nervous system reveals another. This is why observing emotional contradiction requires pattern recognition rather than paranoia. Everyone experiences occasional inconsistency because human emotions are complex. What matters is repeated contradiction over time. Repeated emotional incongruence reveals underlying emotional reality more accurately than isolated moments. Behavior patterns expose what words attempt to conceal. Another important reason emotional contradiction matters is because people reveal priorities emotionally. What emotionally activates someone often reveals what truly matters to them internally. Strong emotional reactions indicate psychological investment, attachment, fear, or insecurity. Indifference is usually calm. Emotional contradiction often signals hidden attachment. For example, someone claiming they do not care while reacting intensely every time a subject appears is unconsciously revealing emotional involvement. Someone pretending confidence while becoming defensive under minor criticism reveals internal insecurity beneath the performance. The nervous system tells the truth through reaction patterns. This understanding changes how communication is interpreted completely. Instead of blindly trusting polished words, psychologically aware people observe emotional alignment carefully. They listen not only to what is being said, but how it is being expressed emotionally. Tone matters. Timing matters. Facial tension matters. Repeated reactions matter. The deeper truth is that emotions cannot remain hidden forever because human behavior is deeply connected to internal state. The mind may attempt to manage appearances, but emotional energy leaks through unconscious patterns repeatedly. Once someone learns to observe emotional contradiction clearly, human behavior becomes easier to understand. Hidden resentment, attraction, insecurity, fear, dishonesty, and emotional attachment all begin revealing themselves through subtle inconsistency. Because in the end, words can be managed temporarily, but emotions always leave traces behind. Pressure reveals people more clearly than comfort ever can. In comfortable situations, almost anyone can appear calm, confident, kind, disciplined, loyal, or emotionally stable. When life is easy, there's very little resistance testing the nervous system. People can maintain social masks, controlled behavior, and carefully managed personalities because nothing is forcing deeper emotional patterns to surface. But the moment pressure enters the environment, hidden conditioning begins revealing itself automatically. This is why difficult situations are psychologically valuable. Pressure strips away performance. It weakens emotional masks and exposes what exists underneath habitual presentation. Fear, insecurity, anger, impulsiveness, emotional maturity, resilience, discipline, and self-control become visible much faster when people are stressed, uncertain, challenged, or emotionally triggered. The nervous system tells the truth under pressure. Most human behavior is controlled by unconscious conditioning. People develop social identities designed to create approval, avoid rejection, and maintain emotional safety. They learn how to appear composed, intelligent, confident, agreeable, or powerful, depending on what gains acceptance socially. But maintaining those performances requires emotional energy and control. When stress increases, emotional control weakens because the brain shifts into survival-oriented processing. Under pressure, people rely more heavily on instinctive behavioral patterns instead of carefully managed presentation. This is why stress exposes deeper identity structures. A person may appear emotionally stable during normal conversation, but conflict reveals impulsiveness and aggression. Another person may appear quiet or passive, but pressure reveals calmness, strength, and leadership. Someone may speak confidently while everything feels safe, but uncertainty exposes insecurity immediately. Pressure exposes emotional truth. This is especially important because many people judge others based only on surface interaction. They trust charm, charisma, confidence, or polished communication without observing how someone behaves during difficulty. But true character is not measured during comfort. It is measured when emotional pressure increases. Watch people during failure. Watch them during rejection. Watch them when they lose control, lose status, face criticism, encounter uncertainty, or experience discomfort. Those moments reveal priorities, emotional regulation, and nervous system conditioning far more accurately than casual interaction ever will. Stress weakens emotional masks. When fear appears, hidden patterns emerge automatically. Someone driven by insecurity may become defensive or controlling. Someone emotionally immature may avoid accountability or blame others instantly. Someone lacking self-control may react impulsively when frustrated. At the same time, pressure can reveal positive qualities just as clearly. Calmness under stress reveals emotional discipline. Honesty during difficulty reveals integrity. Stability during uncertainty reveals self-control. Leadership during chaos reveals confidence rooted in internal strength rather than external appearance. Pressure magnifies whatever already exists internally. This is why emotionally intelligent individuals observe consistency under difficult conditions carefully. Repeated behavior during pressure reveals whether someone's character is genuine or simply situational. Almost anyone can perform kindness temporarily when convenient. True emotional maturity appears when conditions become uncomfortable. The nervous system always prioritizes survival under stress. Whatever patterns are strongest internally tend to emerge automatically when pressure rises. If fear dominates someone internally, fear shapes behavior under stress. If discipline dominates internally, discipline remains active even during difficulty. This is why pressure creates psychological exposure. Many people unconsciously reveal their deepest emotional patterns when they feel threatened. Ego becomes visible. Insecurity becomes visible. Manipulation becomes visible. Emotional dependency becomes visible. At the same time, courage, resilience, patience, and self-awareness also become visible. Comfort hides many things. Pressure reveals them. Another reason pressure matters psychologically is because emotional intensity reduces the brain's ability to maintain deception consistently. Under low stress, people can monitor behavior carefully. Under high stress, emotional leakage increases dramatically. Tone shifts, body language changes, pacing alters, and impulsive reactions emerge more naturally. The real personality begins appearing. This does not mean people become entirely different under stress. It means stress exposes behavioral patterns that normal comfort allows them to conceal more effectively. Pressure acts like a psychological amplifier. Someone who constantly seeks control may become aggressive under uncertainty. Someone dependent on external validation may collapse emotionally after criticism. Someone with strong internal stability remains relatively calm even while facing difficulty. Repeated reactions matter more than isolated moments. Everyone experiences emotional reactions occasionally because human beings are imperfect. What matters is consistency of behavior patterns under pressure over time. Consistent emotional instability reveals weak regulation. Consistent calmness reveals strong nervous system control. This understanding changes how people should evaluate trust, leadership, relationships, and character completely. Instead of becoming hypnotized by surface-level presentation, emotionally aware individuals study behavior during difficult moments carefully. Because stress reveals priorities, pressure reveals emotional conditioning, uncertainty reveals identity. And once pressure enters the environment, people often show who they truly are far more honestly than they ever intended to. Attention is one of the clearest windows into the human mind. Whatever consistently controls a person's attention usually controls their emotions, decisions, energy, and behavior as well. People may say many things verbally, but their attention patterns reveal what truly matters to them internally. The mind naturally moves toward what it is emotionally attached to, psychologically threatened by, or deeply focused on. This is why attention reveals hidden priorities more honestly than words ever can. Human beings unconsciously expose themselves through what repeatedly captures their focus. Someone obsessed with status constantly watches how others perceive them. Someone driven by insecurity repeatedly compares themselves to other people. Someone emotionally attached secretly monitors a specific person's behavior even while pretending indifference. Someone controlled by fear constantly searches for certainty, reassurance, or control. Attention exposes emotional investment. Most people believe emotions are revealed only through direct expression, but emotional attachment often appears much more clearly through focus patterns. What a person repeatedly notices, reacts to, criticizes, admires, or emotionally returns to mentally reveals where psychological energy is concentrated. The mind cannot help revealing what matters internally. This is why emotionally intelligent individuals observe attention carefully. They notice what subjects repeatedly trigger emotional reactions. They observe where people place their time, energy, and mental focus. Because repeated attention creates behavioral patterns that expose hidden motivations. A person may verbally claim confidence, while constantly monitoring social approval online. Another may insist they have moved on emotionally while continuing to check someone's activity obsessively. Someone may claim indifference towards success while becoming emotionally reactive whenever achievement is discussed. The attention pattern tells the real story. Human beings naturally reveal attachment through focus because the nervous system prioritizes emotionally significant information automatically. The brain constantly scans for what matters psychologically: fear, attraction, insecurity, ego, validation, resentment, and desire all influence attention direction without conscious awareness. This is why attention becomes such a powerful psychological signal. People often expose their deepest concerns through repetitive focus. Someone who constantly criticizes others may secretly feel threatened by them. Someone who repeatedly seeks validation may lack internal self-worth. Someone who obsesses over control often fears uncertainty deeply. Attention reveals internal conflict. Even negative emotional fixation reveals attachment. Many people mistakenly believe emotional attachment only appears through positive behavior, but hatred, resentment, jealousy, and obsession also create strong psychological focus. The mind repeatedly returns to emotionally charged subjects because emotional intensity strengthens mental fixation. Indifference is usually quiet. If someone constantly discusses, criticizes, monitors, or reacts emotionally toward something, there is usually deeper psychological investment involved. Emotional energy follows attention automatically. Whatever the mind repeatedly returns to often reflects unresolved emotional significance. This is especially visible in relationships and social dynamics. A person pretending emotional detachment may continue watching, reacting, or subtly seeking information about someone they claim not to care about. Their attention reveals emotional involvement more honestly than their words. The nervous system reveals attachment through focus patterns. Attention also exposes priorities because people invest energy where value exists internally. Time, emotional reaction, and mental focus are resources. Whatever repeatedly receives those resources matters psychologically, regardless of verbal claims. Someone saying family matters most while constantly prioritizing status and external approval reveals a contradiction between words and attention. Someone claiming they value peace while repeatedly engaging in drama reveals emotional addiction to stimulation. Behavior follows attention. This is why controlling attention is so important psychologically. Whatever dominates attention gradually shapes emotional state, perception, and identity. The ancients understood this deeply. They believed whoever controls attention controls the direction of the mind itself. Modern systems understand this too. Media, social platforms, advertising, and influence strategies constantly compete for human attention because attention shapes emotion and behavior over time. Fear-based information captures focus quickly because emotionally charged content activates survival mechanisms automatically. People become psychologically conditioned by what repeatedly controls their attention. This is why awareness matters. Emotionally intelligent individuals learn to observe both their own attention patterns and the attention patterns of others. They recognize that focus reveals hidden priorities more accurately than polished communication. What people repeatedly seek, avoid, react to, compare themselves to, or emotionally monitor exposes internal reality. Attention also reveals emotional maturity. Stable individuals can direct focus intentionally instead of being controlled constantly by emotional impulses. Emotionally reactive individuals lose control of attention easily because fear, insecurity, comparison, or validation dominate awareness automatically. The deeper truth is simple. The mind moves toward what it values emotionally. Whatever repeatedly captures someone's focus is shaping their internal world. Their attention patterns expose fears, desires, insecurities, obsessions, and attachments, whether they consciously realize it or not. And once someone understands how attention reveals psychology, people become far easier to understand, because the mind always leaves traces through what it cannot stop focusing on. Most people judge others based on isolated moments. One good conversation, one emotional apology, one impressive performance, or one kind gesture becomes enough for them to create an entire perception of someone's character. But psychology does not work that way. Human identity is not revealed through occasional moments. It is revealed through repeated behavioral patterns over time. Patterns tell the truth. Anyone can act differently for short periods. A person can perform confidence temporarily, display kindness when convenient, or appear emotionally mature during calm situations. Human beings are highly adaptable socially. They learn how to create favorable impressions because social acceptance is deeply connected to survival psychology. But maintaining a false image consistently over long periods is extremely difficult. The nervous system always returns to conditioning. This is why repeated behavior matters far more than isolated events. Patterns expose emotional habits, priorities, values, and psychological structure. Temporary actions may reflect mood or strategy, but repeated actions reveal identity. A person who occasionally becomes angry is human. A person who repeatedly reacts with aggression under pressure reveals a deeper emotional pattern. Someone who forgets something once is normal. Someone who consistently breaks promises reveals unreliability as part of behavioral conditioning. Consistency exposes character. Most people ignore repeated patterns because they become emotionally attached to potential instead of reality. They focus on what someone says they will become rather than what their behavior repeatedly demonstrates. But behavior repeated consistently is one of the clearest indicators of psychological truth. The brain operates through habit loops. Human beings develop emotional and behavioral patterns through repetition over time. The nervous system prefers familiarity, which means people often repeat the same emotional reactions, communication styles, coping mechanisms, and decision-making patterns unconsciously. Someone conditioned by insecurity may repeatedly seek validation. Someone conditioned by fear may repeatedly avoid accountability or difficult situations. Someone emotionally mature may repeatedly remain calm during conflict. Repeated behavior reveals what the nervous system has normalized internally. This is why emotionally intelligent people observe long-term consistency carefully instead of reacting emotionally to isolated moments. They study patterns across time, pressure, relationships, and changing circumstances. Because temporary performance can be manipulated. Consistency is harder to fake. A person may appear honest during low-risk situations, but become deceptive when pressure increases. Another may appear supportive publicly while repeatedly undermining others privately. Some individuals perform kindness strategically when it benefits their image, but abandon those behaviors when there is no external reward. Patterns eventually expose all of this. This principle is especially important because emotions often distort judgment. People naturally want to believe the best about those they admire, love, fear, or depend on emotionally. Hope can blind perception. Attraction can weaken observation. Emotional attachment can cause people to excuse repeated unhealthy patterns. But the nervous system always leaves evidence through repetition. Someone who repeatedly avoids responsibility is showing a pattern. Someone who repeatedly creates drama is showing a pattern. Someone who repeatedly lies, manipulates, withdraws emotionally, or seeks control is revealing conditioning through behavior. At the same time, positive patterns reveal emotional maturity just as clearly. Someone who consistently keeps promises reveals integrity. Someone who repeatedly stays calm under pressure reveals emotional control. Someone who consistently supports others, even during difficulty, reveals loyalty. Identity is reflected through consistency. The reason patterns matter psychologically is because repeated behavior eventually becomes automatic. The conscious mind can manage performance temporarily, but long-term behavior is shaped more by subconscious conditioning than by deliberate presentation. Under stress, fatigue, emotional activation, or uncertainty, people tend to default back into their strongest patterns automatically. This is why repeated observation across different situations reveals character much more accurately than surface interaction. Behavior under pressure matters. Behavior over time matters. Behavior during difficulty matters. The deeper truth is that people reveal themselves continuously, but most observers fail to notice because they focus on emotional moments instead of recurring patterns. One apology may sound convincing, but repeated disrespect reveals more. One confident speech may sound powerful, but repeated avoidance reveals insecurity underneath. Patterns expose reality beyond words. This understanding creates emotional clarity. Instead of becoming hypnotized by isolated charm, promises, or emotional performances, psychologically aware individuals pay attention to consistency. They understand that repeated behavior reflects internal structure. The mind repeats what it is normalized. This is why real change is difficult. Changing identity requires changing repeated behavior consistently over time. And this is also why observing patterns gives such deep psychological insight into other people. Because eventually, everyone becomes what they repeatedly practice emotionally, mentally, and behaviorally. And no matter how polished someone's words appear in isolated moments, their consistent patterns will always reveal who they truly are underneath. Psychological awareness changes the way you experience people, conversations, and even yourself. When you begin understanding how human behavior actually works beneath the surface, you stop reacting blindly and start observing patterns. This shift alone protects you from a large amount of manipulation, confusion, emotional confusion, and misinterpretation that most people live with daily without realizing it. Manipulation is not always dramatic or obvious. It is often subtle, emotional, and disguised as normal communication. People influence each other through tone, timing, emotional pressure, selective truth, omission, and behavioral framing. Most of the time, the person being influenced does not even realize it is happening because they are focused on words rather than psychological structure. But awareness changes that completely. When you start observing emotional signals, behavioral consistency, attention patterns, and pressure responses, you stop taking communication at face value. You begin noticing when something feels off, even if the words sound correct. That feeling is often your subconscious detecting incongruence between behavior and language. This is where psychological protection begins. A psychologically aware person does not rush to conclusions, but they also do not ignore repeated patterns. They understand that human behavior is layered. One moment does not define someone, but repeated behavior across time, situations, and emotional states reveals far more truth than isolated communication ever could. Manipulation becomes easier when people lack observation skills. For example, someone may appear supportive verbally while consistently undermining your confidence indirectly. Someone may claim honesty while selectively withholding important details. Someone may act emotionally invested while only showing attention when it benefits them. Without awareness of behavioral patterns, these inconsistencies are often missed or rationalized away. But once awareness increases, interpretation changes. You stop asking only what did they say, and start asking what is their behavior repeatedly showing. This simple shift prevents emotional misjudgment. It also reduces emotional dependency on surface-level communication. Another important aspect of psychological awareness is emotional regulation. When people are emotionally reactive, they are easier to influence. Strong emotions narrow perception. Fear, attraction, insecurity, excitement, or anger can temporarily override logical evaluation. In those moments, people tend to accept narratives without questioning deeper patterns. Awareness creates distance between emotion and interpretation. Instead of reacting instantly, you begin observing first. This pause allows clarity to develop. You become less vulnerable to emotional pressure because you are no longer fully controlled by immediate emotional response. Manipulation often relies on emotional urgency. It pushes people to react quickly before they have time to analyze. Psychological awareness interrupts that urgency by introducing observation. Another layer of protection comes from understanding human motivation. Most behavior is driven by internal needs such as validation, control, security, status, attachment, or fear. When you understand these motivations, you stop personalizing everything. You realize that many behaviors are not about you directly, but about the other person's internal psychological state. This reduces emotional confusion significantly. Instead of asking, why are they doing this to me? You begin asking what internal need is driving this behavior. That shift creates emotional stability because you stop interpreting everything as personal attack or personal validation. Psychological awareness also improves self-awareness. As you observe others more clearly, you also begin noticing your own patterns. You see how your attention shifts under emotion, how your decisions change under pressure, and how your behavior reflects internal conditioning. This creates space for self-correction instead of automatic repetition. You become less controlled by unconscious habits because you start recognizing them in real time. Over time, this builds emotional intelligence. You become less reactive, more stable, and more intentional in communication. You also become harder to manipulate because manipulation depends heavily on emotional blindness and impulsive reaction. When awareness increases, influence becomes transparent. You begin noticing tone changes, emotional inconsistencies, repeated behavioral patterns, attention shifts, and pressure responses more clearly. You stop confusing charm with authenticity or intensity with sincerity. You start evaluating consistency instead of momentary performance. The result is clarity. Clarity in relationships, clarity in communication, and clarity in judgment. You stop being emotionally pulled in every direction because you are no longer reacting blindly to isolated signals. You are observing patterns over time. In the end, psychological awareness is not about controlling others. It is about understanding behavior deeply enough to protect your own emotional stability, make clearer decisions, and see people as they actually are instead of how they momentarily appear. In the end, everything comes down to one simple truth. People are far more predictable than they appear, but only when you learn to look beyond words and observe patterns. Most confusion in life does not come from reality itself, but from misreading human behavior, trusting isolated moments instead of repeated evidence, reacting to emotion instead of studying psychology, and believing surface communication instead of noticing deeper signals. Human beings are always revealing themselves. Through contradiction, pressure, attention, and repetition, the nervous system constantly leaks information that words alone cannot fully hide. Fear shows up in avoidance. Insecurity shows up in attention seeking. Emotional attachment shows up in focus. Truth shows up in consistency over time. And psychological conditioning shows up in repeated behavior under different situations. Once you understand this, you stop being controlled by surface-level impressions. You stop overvaluing charm, temporary confidence, or emotional performances. Instead, you begin to see people through the lens of patterns, stability, and behavior under pressure. This creates clarity, not suspicion, awareness, not paranoia. At the same time, you begin to understand yourself more deeply. You see how your own attention, emotions, reactions, and habits shape your identity. You realize that confidence is not something you wait for, but something built through repeated action. You understand that fear is not a command, but a signal. And you recognize that identity is not fixed, but constantly shaped by what you repeatedly do.